They say when you're born into the Quinn family, you carry more than just a name, you carry a prophecy. I came into this world clutching half a jade pendant, a family heirloom rumored to hold the power of foresight. They called me the last bloodline of a family that could see the future. Naturally, it didn't take long before the world got the memo. If anyone could match their pendant to mine, they'd earn the full backing of the Quinns. That kind of support? It turns men into kings. In my last life, I was stupid enough to believe love was stronger than ambition. Out of the two people who showed up with a matching pendant, I chose Brandon Leamy's so-called childhood sweetheart. I thought choosing him would give me both love and legacy. Instead, I handed him the key to ruin. The Quinns helped him climb to the top, made him the richest man in the city. And when he got what he wanted, he took everything from Mimi pendant, my freedom, even my family. He locked me in a basement with rats and venomous bugs, while using my pendant's predictive powers to slaughter my bloodline. When I dragged my half-dead body to confront him, he drained the last of my blood to water his girlfriend's roses. And the only thing he said to me? You should have known what pain feels like. I've been waiting 3 years for this moment. Remember when you forced me to marry you? Vanessa was in more pain than you'll ever feel when she slit her wrists. This is justice. I died alone in that basement. But I didn't stay dead. The universe, God, fate, karma, call it what you want, gave me a second shot. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing in the main hall of the Quinn estate, right back to the day I was supposed to choose a husband. Just like before, 2 men stood before me. Brandon Lee and Ethan Carter. Brandon, the same man who murdered my family, and Ethan, the heir of the Carter family, the sworn enemies of the Lees. This wasn't just a romantic choice. This decision would shift the power balance between 2 of the biggest families in the city. I looked down from the hall's high platform, taking in their faces. Brandon had that smug look I used to find charming. Now it made my skin crawl. Ethan, on the other hand, stood tall and silent, unreadable, with a quiet strength in his eyes. Before I could say anything, the elders started whispering. Does he even need to think? Brandon's known Zachary since they were kids. Of course he'll pick him. They're meant for each other. It'd be the perfect union. I used to think those whispers meant something. Now I saw them for what they were, echoes of a lie. Brandon's lips curled in a confident grin. Zach, you'll choose me, right? Don't drag this out. Let's grab a big dinner after this. It's tradition. He sounded so sure. So entitled. The elders from the Carter side scoffed. Brandon, excuse me, mister. Quinn hasn't made his choice yet. What gives you the right to speak for him? Yeah, just because you've been obsessed with him since childhood doesn't mean you own him, someone muttered. Brandon's ears turned red. You don't know anything. Zach and I have always been in love. No outsider's going to come between us. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. I glanced down at the note in my hand, the one with my final choice. In my last life, I wrote Brandon's name. This time, it was different. I handed the paper to my father. He glanced at it, then nodded. We go with Zachary's decision. My mother and the aunts immediately rushed into wedding prep mode, picking an auspicious date and talking about decor like we hadn't just flipped the future upside down. But I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Brandon was already reaching for my hand, thinking he'd won. This is amazing, Zach. We'll be together forever. Hungry? Let's go eat. He didn't notice the shift in my expression, didn't sense the storm coming. Everyone else expected me to giggle and cling to his arm like before. But I yanked my hand away and looked him dead in the eyes. Brandon, you haven't paid me back the money you borrowed for gambling last time, have you? Might be a good time to settle that debt. The room went cold. Brandon's smile faltered. Zach, why bring that up now? It's old news. Our money didn't grow on trees, I replied. If you think stalling will make me forget, think again. The Lees looked humiliated. One of his uncles quickly stood up. Mr. Quinn, don't worry. We'll wire it to you immediately. Brandon was left standing awkwardly while I turned and walked out. I didn't even look back. That night, I treated myself to dinner at the best restaurant uptown. If fate was going to be generous enough to give me a second life, then I sure as hell was going to eat well. But life has a cruel sense of humor. Just as I walked in, I heard her voice. Vanessa Blake. Yenza, I heard that guy humiliated you in front of everyone. Did he figure something out? I turned toward the voice just in time to see her draped all over Brandon like a cheap fur coat. Relax, Brandon said, sipping wine like he was the star of a soap opera. Zach's clueless. When I get his jade pendant and make the Lees the richest, I'll ditch him. You'll be Mrs. Lee, baby. My grip on the door handle tightened. The rage I'd buried for years started to rise. Not yet, I told myself. Not here. But it was tempting. Vanessa was practically dry humping him at the table, and they weren't even trying to be subtle. I cleared my throat twice. Loud enough to disrupt their public display of trashiness. Vanessa froze like a cockroach under a spotlight. Brandon yanked his hand off her chest and spun around. Zach, don't get the wrong idea. She said, her chest hurt. I was, helping. Unbelievable. He would have been a great actor if he weren't a sociopath. I didn't flinch. Oh, really? Then I hope your hands have healing powers. Vanessa practically tripped over herself trying to suck up to me. Yen, let's eat together. You must be lonely. No thanks, I said, glancing at their nearly empty table. Looks like you two already licked the plates clean. Her smile cracked. She released my arm and gave Brandon a dirty look. Zach, Brandon said defensively. Even if you don't like Vanessa, don't talk to her like that. She was being nice. I'm talking about both of you, I shot back. Equally disgusting. His face went pale. I used to be soft around him, meek, even. Not anymore. Vanessa was trembling with rage. Zachary Quinn, don't be shameless. You think Brandon needs you? I smirked and leaned in. Tell me, did he borrow 500 grand from me last night to buy your jade bracelet, or was that to pay off your debts? Boom. Silence. The blood drained from both their faces. Brandon turned to her in disbelief. Vanessa stumbled backward and knocked over a chair. Satisfied, I left. I didn't come here to eat with garbage. On the way home, I finally had time to sit with my thoughts. My parents, God, they were everything to me. In my past life, they died because I trusted the wrong man. Now I clung to every second with them. We ate dinner together, walked in the garden, talked about nothing and everything. They were confused at my sudden affection, but I didn't care. I needed them. I needed this second chance. After a few days, I returned to my villa. And guess who I found lurking outside like a damn raccoon? Brandon. Zach, he whined, you really didn't need to put guards at your door. I couldn't even get in. Just trying to keep out the rats, I said coolly. But it looks like one slipped through. He didn't even flinch. Doesn't matter. They let me in earlier. I already had someone grab my things. My stomach dropped. What did you take? He shrugged like it was no big deal. But I knew. My pendant. The string had broken, and I'd sent it home to be rest-strung. You stole it, didn't you? I grabbed his collar. You took my jade pendant. So what? He barked. We're getting married anyway, aren't we? When the hell did I say that? I snapped. Give it back. I saw red. My vision swam. Before I could process it, my knees gave out. The world tilted, and everything went black. I woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the sound of my mother's voice calling my name. My head throbbed like someone had taken a jackhammer to my skull, and my mouth was as dry as sandpaper. I blinked against the sunlight pouring in through the window and saw her sitting beside my bed, eyes red, clutching my hand like it was the only thing anchoring her to earth. Zach, honey, what happened? She asked, pressing a cup of water to my lips. I took a sip and tried to sit up, but my body felt like it had been steamrolled. I thought about telling her the truth that Brandon had stolen my jade pendant and might be planning to use it again to screw over our entire family, but I stopped myself. The chaos it would trigger in the clan would be a disaster. And right now, I needed calm. I forced a smile and lied through my teeth. It's nothing, Mom. Just low blood sugar, probably. I'll handle it. She didn't believe me, but she didn't press either. That was her way, always trusting me to take care of things even when I shouldn't have to. But this time I would. I wouldn't let history repeat itself. I spent the next few days making arrangements quietly, double-checking security, keeping my pendant stringer on standby. I made sure to wear a fake copy around my neck, just in case Brandon got any more ideas. Meanwhile, the wedding preparations rolled forward like a train with no brakes. My family had always valued tradition, so this ceremony was being treated like a royal event. My mom sewed my wedding outfit herself. Every stitch was filled with love, patience, and a little anxiety. She didn't say it, but I could see the worry behind her eyes every time she glanced at me. Maybe she sensed I wasn't marrying for love this time, but for war. The day finally came. My house looked like it had been invaded by florists and photographers. Strings of white lilies framed the gate. The fountain in the courtyard was flowing with rose petals, and the media vans were lined up like sharks outside the estate walls. Inside, I stood in my ceremonial outfit, calm on the outside but boiling underneath. My father gave me a firm pat on the shoulder, the way he did when I got into college. "You're doing the right thing, Zachary. No matter what happens, we stand with you." I nodded, the note I'd written to him 3 days ago burning a hole in my memory. A single name. Ethan Carter. The right name this time. The doors burst open. Brandon Lee was here, loud, obnoxious, and completely full of himself. He wore a white tuxedo, held a bouquet of overpriced flowers, and walked in with all the arrogance of a man who thought the world still revolved around him. "Zach, I'm here to take you home," he shouted into a megaphone like some rom-com reject. I rolled my eyes so hard I saw the back of my brain. Through the carved wooden doors, I heard champagne bottles being popped and someone ramming into the gate with their shoulder. "Come on out, Zach. Let's not waste everyone's time. I've got an appointment with Vanessa at the jeweler later." The audacity of this guy was Olympic level. I glanced at the housekeeper. "Tell Mr. Lee that the Quinn family doesn't open our doors to criminals." The noise outside escalated. His group of rich loser friends joined in, banging on the walls and hurling insults like children denied a toy. "Open the door, or we'll kick it down. Zach's been chasing Brandon since middle school. Who's he fooling? He just wants attention. Watch him cry later when Brandon marries Vanessa." Their words slithered into my ears like the rats I once lived with in that basement. I closed my eyes and breathed through the anger. I had waited 3 years for this moment. I wouldn't let their noise shake me. I gave the signal. The heavy doors creaked open. Sunlight exploded into the room, hitting Brandon square in his smug face. He froze, clearly not expecting me to actually open the door. I stood there, framed in light, every thread of my outfit glinting with silver, every inch of me radiating cold, calculated calm. Brandon stepped forward, grinning like an idiot. "Finally. What took you so long? Let's get this over with." "Vanessa's waiting." I cut him off. "You're not the groom." Laughter erupted behind him. A few of his own friends chuckled nervously, unsure if I was serious. "Come on, Zach. Don't be dramatic." I didn't respond. I just walked past him. He turned in confusion, spinning like a broken weather vane, as I stepped toward the black Rolls-Royce parked beside the fountain. The door opened, and out stepped Ethan Carter, sleek and commanding in a tailored suit, a faint glow emanating from the jade pendant clipped at his waist. He held out his hand. "Mr. Quinn," he said with a quiet confidence that made the air itself pause. "Your groom is here." My hand slipped into his like it belonged there. Dry, warm, steady, everything Brandon had never been. Brandon shouted behind us, "What the hell is this, Zach? You picked me. You gave me your pendant." I turned and smiled, a slow, venom-laced curve of the lips. "You sure about that? Maybe you should ask my father whose name was on that note." Whispers surged through the guests like a wildfire. The daughters of the elite circled me, voices dripping with scorn. "Brandon, seriously? Did you think that knockoff pendant could fool the Quinns? Zach chose Mr. Carter days ago. We all knew, but didn't want to embarrass you." Brandon's face turned every shade of red. He lunged for me, but Ethan moved faster, stepping between us like a shield. "Back off," Ethan said coolly, flashing his pendant. "You can't fake destiny." Brandon's bravado crumbled. "Zach, you bought me a car, a house. You loved me and deny it." I walked forward, pulled a document from my pocket, and slapped it into his chest. "You mean this? The $70 million I gave you for a fake investment? Or maybe the down payment on that Riverside condo you gave Vanessa as a gift? Don't act like I owe you anything." He trembled, then exploded. "You set me up. You were calculating this whole time. Funny, Ethan chimed in. That's exactly what you were doing when you stole Zach's pendant. Brandon reached for me again, screaming nonsense, but Ethan caught his arm and twisted it just enough to make him drop to his knees. Don't touch my husband, he said. And just like that, the crowd erupted into applause. I looked down at Brandon broken, defeated, pathetic. In the last life, I mistook trash for treasure. This time, I chose right. I turned to Ethan and let him lead me into the courtyard. The pendants at our waists glowed faintly, responding to each other like two halves of a whole. And as the priest began the ceremony and our hands linked together, I realized something. This wasn't just a wedding. This was revenge, rebirth, and resurrection all wrapped in silk and sunlight. Brandon could scream all he wanted, but his voice would never touch me again. Brandon's shouting faded behind me as I stepped further into the hall, my hand still wrapped securely in Ethan's. I could feel the pulse of the jade pendant against my waist, reacting to his like magnets finally finding their match after lifetimes apart. That glow wasn't just ceremonial, it was proof. Proof that fate wasn't random. That I hadn't lost everything just to lose again. As the music swelled and the officiant began the vows, I stood beside Ethan under the arch of pale roses and white orchids, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt steady. I wasn't the fool anymore. I wasn't the victim. I was the one who had chosen right, not because I believed in fairy tales, but because I had finally learned how to see clearly. Ethan looked down at me with that calm intensity that had never once wavered. His hands were warm. His grip was firm. When he spoke his vows, he didn't wax poetic or pretend to be perfect. He simply said, "I'll protect you from anything that tries to hurt you again." And that was more than enough. After the rings were exchanged and the crowd burst into cheers, Ethan pulled me into his arms without hesitation. My face landed against his chest, and for a second, I allowed myself to exhale. His heartbeat was steady.
Solid. Real.
But of course, this wasn't a fairy tale.
Not yet.
Because no rebirth is complete without one final reckoning. And mine was waiting right outside the venue, fuming like a discarded villain in a story he no longer controlled. As soon as the guests scattered and the toasts ended, I checked my phone and found a message blinking on the screen. "I'm outside your villa. Just 5 minutes. That's all I ask. Brandon." Of course. Ethan was closing his laptop when he noticed the look on my face. "He's here," he asked. I nodded. "Let me go alone." He didn't like that. Not one bit. But he respected me too much to argue. 5 minutes, he said. "Call if anything feels off." I stepped into the evening chill outside our villa, the concrete still warm from the day's sun. Brandon stood under the street lamp, looking thinner than I remembered.
Gaunt even.
His designer suit hung awkwardly on him, like he didn't have the weight to fill it anymore. He saw me and immediately straightened up, shoving something into my face like a peace offering. "Your mother's jade bracelet," he said quickly. "I've been holding on to it. I was going to give it back, I swear." "I didn't touch it." "You stole that from my house," I replied flatly. "Same as the pendant." He flinched but tried to recover. I was confused. I made mistakes. But Zach, what we had was real. I was stupid, okay? I let Vanessa manipulate me, but I always loved you. I laughed. Out loud. "Loved me? You mean when you used my money to buy her jewelry? Or when you locked me up in the basement while you watered her flowers with my blood? That kind of love." He took a shaky step closer. "It wasn't like that. I didn't know what I was doing. I was pressured, the family, save it." I cut him off. "You want the real reason I walked away? I'll give you 3. One, when you waver between 2 people you've already chosen. Love doesn't hesitate. 2, you never respected me. You let your friends call me a cash cow, and you laughed with them. And 3, you're weak. You stole power you didn't earn and drove your own family into the ground trying to keep it." His face went slack. I could see the panic setting in, like he was finally realizing I wasn't here to forgive or fix him. I was here to bury what was left. "Zach, please. I can't rebuild without you. The Goof family is dead," I snapped. "And even if it weren't, I wouldn't lift a finger to save it." He dropped to his knees then, in the middle of the sidewalk, in front of the house that used to be ours. "Please, Zach. I'll do anything. Just give me another chance." I'll be your puppet, your shadow, whatever you want. I looked down at him, shaking, groveling, and all I felt was exhaustion. You really thought I'd come running back when everything collapsed, huh? I reached down, tapped the watch on his wrist, the one I gave him for his 18th birthday. That used to mean something. And you pawned it off to buy Vanessa a necklace. His eyes widened. You knew. I know everything now, I said. And that's why I chose Ethan. Because he never once tried to strip me of my value. He saw it, honored it, and protected it. Brandon was crying now, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then he muttered, he only wants your prophetic bloodline. You'll end up used and discarded just like I did to you. I stepped back. Projection doesn't look good on you. And for the record, Ethan already returned the real pendant to me. Quietly. Without fanfare. Because he's not obsessed with owning Mayhay's committed to standing beside me. I turned to leave, but Brandon lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. Give me the pendant, he hissed. It belongs to me. I found the other half. You owe me, I owe you nothing, I said through gritted teeth. And if you ever lay a finger on me again, I won't be the one you'll have to deal with. Right on cue, Ethan's black SUV pulled around the corner, headlights slicing through the night. Brandon stumbled back like he'd seen a ghost. You had him watching me? Always, I said. Just like I'm always 10 steps ahead now. Ethan stepped out of the car and walked toward me without a word, eyes locked on Brandon like he was already calculating how to break his arm without leaving a mark. Brandon backed away, muttering nonsense, before running into the dark like a criminal caught mid-act. I slid into the car and leaned back against the leather seat, letting the adrenaline finally drain out of my limbs. Ethan reached over and took my hand. You okay? I nodded. He's done. Good, he said simply. And just like that, we left the past behind. But fate had one more twist waiting, and Brandon wasn't done playing villain just yet. I thought that night would be the end of it. I'd said my piece. Brandon had crawled away like a beaten dog. I thought he'd finally accepted defeat, but clearly I was still underestimating how deep his obsession went. The days that followed were oddly calm, almost too calm. Ethan and I went about our routines: charity galas, strategy meetings, late nights in his home office reviewing proposals, while I curled up on the couch next to him with a glass of wine and a tablet. The city had finally started to look at us as a real power couple, not just some scandal-fueled headline. The Quinn and Carter names were now mentioned in the same breath as unshakable. But then came the charity banquet. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, champagne glasses clinking in every direction. I was working the room like always, shaking hands with CEOs and ambassadors, when I felt the familiar heat of my jade pendant against my waist. That only happened when Ethan's was close. I looked up and spotted him across the ballroom, talking to European investors, his smile polite, but distracted. His eyes kept flicking back to me through the crowd. I smiled back. And that was when the moment shattered. Mr.
Quinn.
Please, you have to save Brandon. The scream sliced through the music like a knife. I turned, and there she was, Vanessa Blakey, on her knees in the middle of the floor, sobbing, clutching the hem of my tailored slacks like we were in some twisted soap opera. Cameras flashed. Conversations halted. I raised an eyebrow. Miss Blake, what are you doing? He's dying, Zach, she sobbed. He hasn't eaten in days. He's holed up in his old house with nothing but your watch and photos. He keeps saying your name. He's not well. I didn't even blink. And that's my problem because you loved him once. Because you used to care, and he used to use my blood to water your roses, I replied coldly, yanking my leg free from her grip. Don't talk to me about used to, she gasped, stumbling backward like I'd slapped her, and before she could spit out another word, Ethan appeared behind me like a storm in a suit. Miss Blake, he said with quiet steel in his voice, if you believe embarrassing yourself at a public function will bring the Leaf family back to life, you're more delusional than I thought. Security moved in instantly. Vanessa was dragged off screaming, mascara smudged, heels broken, yelling something about curses and karma. I rolled my eyes. The nerve of her to show up at a charity event funded by the Carter Group, begging the husband of her ex's victim for help. The moment passed, the music resumed, and Ethan gently pulled me aside to the quieter hallway near the spiral staircase. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded. Just annoyed. That woman still thinks she's the protagonist. She's not even the subplot, he muttered, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. Let's get you some air. But the minute we stepped away from the crowd, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Before I could say anything, a shadow moved near the stairs. Then everything blurred. A sharp prick in my arm. The rush of dizziness. Ethan shouting my name as I stumbled back. My vision fractured. The last thing I saw was Brandon's face pale, wild-eyed, smiling like he'd finally won. Then darkness. When I came to, the air was damp and foul. Mold.
Rischt.
Cold metal. My wrists were tied, the ropes biting into my skin, and the room was spinning. The walls around me were stained and cracked, and above me, a single broken bulb flickered, like a dying heartbeat. I knew this place. The Lee family's basement. The same place I died in my previous life. Brandon was sitting in a rusted chair, polishing the same broken watch I'd given him at 18, whispering nonsense to himself. When he saw me wake up, his face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning.
Zach.
You're back. I fixed it, he said, holding up the watch like it was some sacred relic. I fixed everything. Just like we can fix us. I tugged at the ropes. You're insane. No, he hissed, eyes twitching. You made me like this. You married him. You chose him over me. You said you'd love me forever. And now you'll remember. He pulled something from his coat. A syringe.
Clear liquid.
My heart slammed against my chest. You think you can drug me into loving you? I spat. You've really lost it. I'm not crazy, he whispered, approaching. I just need to erase the parts of you that forgot. When it's just us, when you're clean again, you'll see. You'll see it's always been me. I thrashed against the ropes, kicked the bed frame, screamed his name, but the basement was too deep. Too far. I was losing consciousness again. The chemical scent invaded my nose as he pressed a cloth to my mouth. My body went limp, but my mind screamed one word over and over: Ethan. I don't know how long passed before the door burst open. There was a blinding flash of light, a roar, a shot fired into the ceiling. And then I heard Itha's voice. Get the hell away from him. Ethan stood in the doorway, bleeding from a cut above his eyebrow, eyes wild and trained on Brandon like a soldier on a battlefield. Brandon turned, knife in hand, but Ethan moved like lightning, kicking the blade away and knocking him to the ground. In seconds, he was untying me, pulling me into his arms, his voice trembling against my ear. Zach, I've got you. I'm here. I'm here. I buried my face in his chest and let it all out: the fear, the panic, the memory of the last time I died in this very room. This time I didn't die. This time, I had someone who came for me. As he carried me out of that cursed basement, the jade pendant at my waist slipped loose, and Ethan's matched it in a glow so soft it looked like dawn. The prophecy had never lied. This was my real fate. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a victim of it. I felt like the one in control. I don't remember how long Ethan held me in his arms after we left that basement, but I do remember the way his voice trembled when he kept repeating my name like he needed to remind himself I was alive. My head rested against his shoulder while he barked orders to his security team, and all I could think about was the heat of his hand against my back and the smell of smoke and steel from his gun. That basement was behind me now. For good this time. I was taken to the hospital that night: precautionary scans, fluids, stitches for the rope burns. But the real healing didn't happen under fluorescent lights. It happened in the quiet afterward, at home, where Ethan wrapped me in a blanket and refused to let go of my hand. I'm sorry I wasn't faster, he whispered once. I should have gotten there sooner. I didn't say anything. I just leaned in and kissed him. He didn't need to be faster. He just needed to be there. And he was. Every time. News about Brandon broke the next morning. Apparently, in a desperate attempt to run, he forged a fake jade pendant and tried to use it to scam a South American gang. Let's just say they weren't impressed. Word on the street was he got his legs broken and was tossed into the Amazon rainforest like yesterday's trash. The Quinn family didn't lift a finger to help. Neither did anyone else. That chapter? Closed. Vanessa Blake didn't fare much better. She was found in an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city, barely clinging to life, and by the time she was discovered, She was already gone. The reports said it was overdose. Others said suicide. I didn't bother asking which. Her father submitted his resignation to the Carter Group the next morning, and rumor had it he disappeared, entirely checked himself into some mental institution in another province. All those rich second-gens who used to party with Brandon, who used to call me names behind my back while smiling to my face, they vanished too. None of them were welcome in the city's business circles anymore. Some changed names. Others moved abroad. But no one dared to speak the Lee name again. And me? I finally breathed. I leaned against Ethan's chest one night while he reviewed merger paperwork, his fingertips casually tracing circles on my back, and I felt a warmth I never knew I could have. Not the burn of betrayal. Not the sting of fear. But something real. Something mine. That's when I felt the flutter.
Soft.
Faint. Right beneath my ribs. I froze and grabbed his wrist. He looked up immediately, concerned. What's wrong? Nothing, I whispered. Everything's right. He kicked. Ethan stared at me like I'd just handed him the stars. I nodded, smiling so wide it hurt. I think it's a boy. His hands went straight to my stomach, and for a moment, neither of us said a word. The jade pendant around my waist pulsed softly, almost like it approved. We hadn't told anyone yet. Not even my parents. The tests came in quietly, the news even quieter. But he knew. And now I did too. Our child, ours. Not some legacy pawn or symbolic heir, was growing inside me, and that alone felt like the most powerful prophecy I'd ever received. Later that week, Ethan and I attended a state dinner, one of those events where everyone wore diamonds they couldn't pronounce and drank champagne that tasted like regret. I was wearing a black tux with gold embroidery and a matching chain that held my jade pendant in place. It was subtle, but it shimmered when the light hit it. As I moved through the crowd, smiling politely and ignoring the whispers, I felt the pendant warm against my chest. I turned my head, and there he was, cutting through the crowd like a king, his pendant shining in sync with mine, his eyes finding me instantly. Ethan Carter didn't need a stage to command attention. He was the kind of man who made you forget everyone else existed the moment he looked your way. And in that moment, everyone else did disappear. That is, until a shrill voice rang out. Mr.
Quinn.
Please, please help me. Heads turned. Eyes widened. And I sighed. Again. Vanessa. In a wrinkled white dress, makeup smeared, her body thin and trembling, she staggered toward me, crying so hard she could barely speak. Please help Brandon, he's dying, he needs you. I didn't move. He needed a conscience 3 years ago. Not me. You still love him, she gasped. I know you, Dowie, else would you keep that watch he gave you? I pulled the broken watch from my coat pocket and tossed it at her feet. You mean this? I kept it as a reminder of how far I've come. Not because I miss the hands that used to hold it. You'll be punished, she hissed, clawing at her dress. You can't do this. You're cruel. You're heartless. And you're trespassing. Ethan cut in, appearing behind me in full suit and wrath mode. Security. She was dragged out within seconds, her screams echoing off the marble walls. The crowd whispered, but no one looked at me with pity. If anything, they looked at me with respect. Because they knew. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the one who survived. And more importantly, the one who rebuilt. Later that night, I took off my shoes and collapsed onto the velvet couch in our living room. Ethan sat down beside me, loosening his tie. You good? He asked. I nodded. Just tired. You want to talk about it? Not tonight. He kissed my forehead and pulled me into his arms. I let myself rest there, body curled against his chest, his heart beating steadily under my cheek. You know, he murmured after a long silence, I used to wonder if fate was real. If all this prophecy stuff was just superstition. And now I believe in you. I didn't respond. I just held his hand, fingers laced tightly with his, and thought about all the things that were still ahead of us. Our child. Our future. A life unburdened by ghosts. But even as I closed my eyes that night, I knew it wasn't over. Not completely. Because shadows don't just vanish, they wait. And Brandon Lee's shadow hadn't disappeared. It was just getting ready for its final act. I should have known it wouldn't end quietly. The thing about monsters is that they never really know when to stay dead. Even after everything after the kidnapping, the scandal, the collapse of the Lee family, Brandon still had one last play, one final trick he thought would win him back the world, he destroyed with his own hands. It happened at the Winter Gala, a private event hosted at the Summit Hall atop the Carter Group's skyscraper. The place had a 360-degree view of the city's skyline, champagne towers, a live string quartet, and a guest list so tight even whispers needed clearance to enter. Ethan and I were expected to make a statement just by walking through the door together, and for once, I didn't mind being looked at. I wore a white tux with silver embroidery and a blue silk lining, hand-stitched by my mother. The jade pendant on my chest matched the one Ethan wore at his side. Two halves of the same destiny finally joined. But just as we descended the spiral staircase toward the main ballroom, I felt a presence before I even saw him. Zach. The voice was hoarse.
Familiar.
Uninvited. Brandon stood at the bottom of the stairs, leaning against the marble railing like he belonged there. His body was thinner than I remembered, almost skeletal under the ill-fitting black coat. His face was pale, unshaven, eyes bloodshot but somehow still burning with that twisted intensity I'd come to know too well. I stopped cold. Ethan moved in front of me immediately. "How the hell did you get in here?" he demanded, voice as sharp as broken glass. Brandon ignored him. His eyes were locked on me, a half-smile curling on his face like this was some kind of reunion. "You look beautiful tonight. That suit, you always liked white." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Security was already approaching, but Brandon took a step forward and pulled something from his coat.
A watch.
My old one, the same one I had tossed at Vanessa's feet. "You kept this," he said. "Even when you hated me, you kept it. That means something. You still care. Deep down, you still love me." "No," I said quietly, calmly. "I kept it to remind myself never to make the same mistake again." His face twitched. "You're lying." He shoved the watch back into his coat and suddenly lunged forward, grabbing my wrist with a grip far stronger than his frail body should have allowed. "Zach, we're meant to be. You just forgot. That pendant was supposed to be mine. You were supposed to be mine." His other hand flashed, and for a second, I didn't register what he was holding until the light hit the syringe. Again. He brought another one. Same clear liquid. Same insanity. "No one else gets to have you," he growled. "I'll take you somewhere safe. Somewhere it's just the two of us." You'll remember I moved fast. I kneed him square in the gut, knocking the wind out of him just as Ethan shoved him off and tackled him to the floor. The syringe rolled away, hitting the edge of the champagne tower and shattering glass everywhere. Security pinned Brandon down, but he kept screaming like a madman. "You'll regret this. You'll never be happy. You're mine, Zach. You always were." The music had stopped. The crowd was frozen. Flashbulbs sparked like gunfire in a war zone. I stood there, catching my breath, staring at the man who once held my fate in his hands. And now he was nothing more than a broken shell clinging to a fantasy that never existed. As they dragged him away, he screamed my name one last time, but I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. Later, sitting in the quiet of Ethan's private office with a blanket over my shoulders and his hand wrapped around mine, I finally let myself breathe. "You sure you're okay?" he asked for the 10th time. "Yeah," I said, resting my head on his shoulder. "He's gone now. Really gone." Ethan didn't respond right away. He just pulled me closer and placed a soft kiss on my temple. "No one will ever touch you again," he promised. And this time I believed it. That night, we curled up on the living room couch with the city lights glowing outside the window. I felt the baby move again, stronger now, a gentle flutter that made my chest ache with something that felt dangerously close to joy. Ethan placed a hand over my stomach, smiling like it was the first time he'd felt it. "He's going to be stubborn," I joked. "Wonder where he gets that from," Ethan replied, kissing my shoulder. "You."
Nah.
"He's got your fire. Your bite. Your fight." I closed my eyes and let myself imagine a tour son, our future, a life where I didn't have to look over my shoulder or wait for the next betrayal. Just love. Real, raw, imperfect, but safe. We didn't announce Brandon's arrest publicly. The Carter Group handled it quietly behind the scenes. He was taken to a facility where he could finally be contented. No headlines, no closure interviews, no pity parties. Just silence. The kind of silence he had stolen from me in a past life. Days passed. Then weeks. The Quinn family celebrated in a small private ceremony when I finally brought Ethan home officially. My parents adored him. My mother even called him son after dinner one night, and I swear I've never seen him look so proud. When the baby was born, 7 pounds, 10 ounces, with my eyes and Ethan's scowl, it felt like the universe had stitched my soul back together. We named him Aiden Quinn Carter. The jade pendants, now housed together in a custom silver locket, were placed over his crib. And for the first time, they glowed without being worn. I took it as a sign. The prophecy was fulfilled. The curse was broken. And as I stood in the nursery late one night, watching Ethan rock our son to sleep, I realized something simple and profound. Revenge didn't heal me. Power didn't protect me. Love did. And this time, I hadn't just survived the storm. I'd built a home in its wake.